If you completely stopped that insulin sensing, then you completely got rid of that cancer.
What if one of the most common hormones in your body, the same one that helps control your blood sugar, was also quietly fueling cancer growth?
Cancer cells actually many of them are very insulin dependent. That is, in order to grow, they need glucose. They live on glucose. That's what fuels their growth more than anything else.
It's not something most people ever think about. We hear about genetics, radiation, toxins, but rarely about insulin. Dr. Jason Fung is a Canadian physician and fasting expert, best known for his books The Obesity Code and The Diabetes Code. He's helped thousands of people lose weight and reverse type 2 diabetes by focusing on insulin control instead of just counting calories.
If you have a cancer that's brewing in there, for example, it's going to be highly dependent on growth. So insulin is a growth factor. Insulin is also a nutrient sensor. So when you eat, insulin goes up. So what you eat plays a big role in what your insulin levels actually are.
Let's start with the basics. Insulin's job, as most people know, is to move glucose sugar from your bloodstream into your cells for energy. But insulin isn't just a sugar hormone. It's also one of the body's master growth signals. When insulin rises, it doesn't just tell your cells, hey, food's here. It also tells them, time to grow. That's great when you're a child, but once you're an adult, you don't want random parts of your body growing. You don't need your liver, pancreas, or any organ expanding. That's what happens in disease.
Insulin turns out to be one of the most sort of fundamental growth factors we have. In fact, if you look back at primitive animals, insulin was not used as a nutrient sensor before. It was used as a growth factor. As we evolved, we actually use the same factor for both growth and nutrient sensing. And that makes sense because insulin tells you that nutrients are available. So you only want to grow when nutrients are available, right? Because if you grow in a period of famine, well, you're huge, you need a lot of food, and there's no food to eat, that's not going to be good. So in order to survive, our body decided, hey, we're going to use the same molecule, insulin, for both to sense that nutrients are available and to signal the body to grow. So therefore, we're going to be able to link what's on the outside, the nutrition, and what's on the inside, which is the growth.
From an evolutionary perspective, insulin has always been tied to survival. In ancient organisms, it first evolved not as a sugar regulator, but as a growth factor, something that told cells when resources were abundant. Over millions of years, our biology merged the two systems. Insulin became both a nutrient sensor and a growth activator. When food is plentiful, insulin says, perfect nutrients are available, now we can grow. When food is scarce, insulin drops, and the body shifts into repair mode. That's an elegant system until modern life comes along. Now, with food everywhere, insulin is almost never low. We eat every few hours, snack between meals, drink calories, and the result is constant insulin elevation. And that, biologically, means constant growth signaling.
If you increase insulin, like with obesity, if you're eating foods that spike insulin, if you're eating all the time, obesity and type 2 diabetes are both states of high insulin. So if you have high insulin, not only do you have obesity and type 2 diabetes, but you are also signaling your cells to grow quickly.
Chronic high insulin, which we see in obesity and type 2 diabetes, doesn't just make you gain fat. It creates a cellular environment where growth is always turned on. Every time you eat, insulin rises. If you're eating processed carbohydrates, sugary drinks, or snacking all day, insulin stays high. That means your cells are being told to grow, store, and divide non-stop. And here's where the problem appears. Cancer cells love that environment.
Cancer cells actually many of them are very insulin dependent. That is, in order to grow, they need glucose. They live on glucose. That's what fuels their growth more than anything else. In order to get glucose from the blood into the cell, they need insulin. So they love insulin because they're trying to grow.
Cancer cells are, at their core, rogue versions of normal cells. They've lost the off switch for growth, and they'll do anything to keep dividing. What fuels that growth? Glucose sugar. And how does glucose get into cells? Through insulin. Cancer cells have figured out this trick. They cover themselves in insulin receptors far more than normal cells, so when insulin is present, they soak up sugar faster than anything else.
The cancer cell is like a single cell. It wants to grow as much as possible at the expense of its neighbors. In order to grow, it wants as much glucose as possible, so it puts out as many insulin receptors as possible, so it's much more insulin sensitive than the cells around it, so that when insulin is available, it'll pull that insulin and grab that glucose.
In the lab, scientists have found that when you deprive certain cancer cells, like breast or colon cancer, of insulin, they literally shrivel and die. But when insulin is high, they thrive. So, in a body with high insulin levels, cancer doesn't just survive, it flourishes.
So if you look at a breast cancer, for example, breast cells have very few insulin receptors. They don't need it. But breast cancer cells have tons of insulin. In fact, in the lab, if you deprive breast cancer cells of insulin, they shrivel up and die. They can't survive without the insulin. It's a growth factor to them, right? If you take away the growth factor, they don't grow. So, for breast cancer, for colorectal cancer, these are both very insulin dependent for their growth. So therefore, if you're providing a state of high insulin, you're going to tip the favor towards cancer growth.
There's a rare genetic condition called Laron syndrome found in a small group of people in Ecuador. They have a mutation that prevents their bodies from responding to growth factors, including insulin. They're short in stature because of it, but here's the wild part. They almost never get cancer. It's an extreme example of how crucial growth signaling, especially insulin signaling, is to cancer biology. When that pathway is silenced, cancer has no fuel source.
There's a group of people in Ecuador who have this funny genetic mutation called Laron dwarfism. And they don't sense insulin at all. And the funny part about it, so they basically don't have any insulin, they don't have the growth factors that come with insulin, so they're all dwarfs. They're short, but they also don't get cancer. Turns out they're almost completely immune to cancer. That's crazy. So it's like if you completely stop that insulin sensing, then you completely got rid of that cancer.
So what can we do about it? The most powerful lever you have is your diet. Every time you eat, you trigger insulin. But the magnitude of that spike depends entirely on what you eat and when. Refined carbs, sugary drinks, white bread, and frequent snacking keep insulin constantly elevated. Whole foods, proteins, healthy fats, and fiber-rich vegetables keep insulin low and steady. And here's something even more powerful: intermittent fasting. When you go 12 to 16 hours without food, your insulin levels drop dramatically. That signals your body to shift out of growth mode and into repair mode, activating processes like autophagy, where your cells clean out damaged parts that could become precancerous.
We can control the insulin levels by what we eat. We can eat things that are not going to spike insulin. We're going to eat sort of other things that are not going to spike growth. We can do things like intermittent fasting, which is going to allow your insulin levels to fall, because remember, insulin is a nutrient sensor. So there are things that you can do that may impact your risk. And mostly it comes down, those things will also affect your weight, of course. So therefore you can get a good proxy of how it's doing by your weight.
So, is this all about prevention? Or can lowering insulin actually help if you already have cancer? The honest answer is mostly prevention, but also support. If you have cancer, you still need standard treatments: surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, all of it. But controlling insulin may help reduce recurrence and improve long-term outcomes. Think of it like this: if a tumor is a fire, standard treatment is the fire hose. Managing insulin is removing the fuel line. It won't replace treatment, but it can make it harder for the fire to come back. Here's what I recommend for anyone looking to stabilize insulin naturally. 1. Extend your fasting window. Finish dinner by 7 p.m. and delay breakfast until 9 or 10 a.m. That gives you 14-15 hours for insulin to fall. 2. Reduce refined carbs. Choose foods with a lower glycemic load. Think vegetables, legumes, whole grains, fish, and healthy fats. 3. Move after meals. A 10-minute walk after eating helps muscles absorb glucose without needing as much insulin. 4. Sleep and stress control. Poor sleep and chronic stress both raise insulin levels through cortisol, so managing them is part of the protocol too. So if there's one takeaway today, it's this. Your body has two modes, growth and repair. Cancer thrives in growth mode. Longevity lives in repair mode. Managing insulin through smarter eating, fasting, and movement helps you spend more time in the repair phase where healing happens. Until then, remember, you don't need to live longer, you need to live cleaner. If you found this eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. Should we talk more about fasting, keto, or cancer nutrition? Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next video.